Welcome to today's webinar on attic protection using special sprinklers. My name is Brandon Telford, Technical Services Manager with Reliable Automatic Sprinkler Company, and I will be your presenter today. The Technical Services Department is available via phone or email Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Reliable's attic sprinklers have been available since December of 2016. We incorporate 4 unique models in this product line: our DS Direction Single, DD Dual Direction, GP General Purpose, and AH Attic Hip Sprinkler. These are all UL listed as special sprinklers, and all information is incorporated into a single technical bulletin, 056. Our maximum operating pressure allowed for this product is 175 psi. We have incorporated a 212 degree Fahrenheit fast response fusible link operating element. We are believers in the benefits of fusible link technology because this particular type of sprinkler head will be installed in an attic space and probably never be looked at again. And we want to have that peace of mind that this sprinkler will not have a compromised operating element, similarly to when glass bulbs end up cracking and then losing their fluid. Also, as a side benefit, we are able to ship these products without the operating element protector. This allows for easier installation and not having to get a punch list item to return and take off one of those orange protective covers. When applying attic sprinklers, it's important to pair the sprinkler with the roof slope that they're going to be installed under. A roof slope is often referred to as a ratio of the rise over the span, often referred to as 4 and 12, 6 and 12, 8 and 12, etc. You're able to find applications for 3 and 12 up to 12 and 12 from all attic sprinkler manufacturers. Reliable has applications that are able to be used between 4 and 12 and 8 and 12. When we look at a roof plan, this is just a simple example here. First things we want to do is understand, hey, what is the roof slopes that we're going to be working with? And in this instance, we see a lot of 4 and 12s, and a lot of 8 and 12s, and everything is great. We're able to use reliable attic sprinklers throughout. When we look at another plan, same situation, but now we have different roof slopes. We see a lot of 10 and 12 and 12 and 12. And this is something that we don't have an application for with our special sprinklers. Sometimes we end up seeing an attic that looks very similar to this, where we have predominantly roof slope that is able to be used with attic sprinklers for reliable. But then we get this one weird area that incorporates some type of dormer with a higher roof pitch. Various construction features can push us into this type of category. In this instance, we are always going to be able to use reliable attic sprinklers all throughout the attic space. In that particular area where the dormer is at, we could use standard spray sprinklers as a workaround. That could affect our hydraulics negatively if we, for example, exceed the number of 4 sprinklers in that area. But it's also worth noting as well that with this dormer, if it is completely sheathed over before it's set up there and it's a separate area, we can have more than 4 standard spray sprinklers in that area and not get penalized with our special sprinkler heads. So just something to consider. You can mix and match these types of setups here. Another unique feature of reliable attic sprinklers is how we were able to measure our coverage areas for our product. We were the first in the industry to measure our coverage areas flat. It's hugely beneficial because if you measure along the slope, you're going to ultimately lose coverage area with your product. It's not really going to give you what's an advertised coverage area if it's getting eaten up along the slope. One thing we have to be aware of, though, is that our cold solder measurement, the distance between sprinkler heads, that way they don't wet the other sprinkler heads and prevent activation, is going to be measured along that slope. So coverage area measured flat, cold solder measured along the slope. Now let's dive into all four of these models that we have available and some of their unique features and characteristics for laying out systems. The first product to discuss is our DS56. This is our single direction product, one that throws water only in a single direction, really designed for a right triangle type attic situation that you see defined there in the picture. And each one of these sprinkler heads basically has a listing and a maximum span of 40 foot. Now we could also install them using a draft curtain to separate them for a dual direction type application. Each single direction throws on each side of this attic that we see here. In this instance, we could cover an 80-foot maximum span. So 2 branch lines could potentially cover 80 foot of a span. That might be a good way that you'd like to approach designing that attic. Now, that really didn't make too much sense the previous slide, but this one right here might make a little bit more sense as to why we'd want to go about doing this. This is a mismatched slope application where we have 5 and 12 on one side and 7 and 12 on the other. We could not install a sprinkler head, a single sprinkler head at the peak to do a dual direction application. The slopes didn't match up in this instance. So one of our only ways to go about doing this is to create 2 lines using the single direction type products. We separated with a draft curtain, and we are able to then go ahead and use those things that way. Now in both cases, we're going to get a 40-foot maximum span out of each sprinkler head should we need it. Now the DS56 is a 5.6 K factor product, and it does have those listings for 4 and 12 to 8 and 12. We have a maximum span of 40 foot, and then we're going to maintain a 6-foot spacing at the peak. We're going to install this product with frame arms perpendicular to the roof deck, and we can back-to-back installation with a draft curtain. Looking at the DS56 installation in a section view, we can see here that a unique feature of this product is a single sprinkler head for all the applications, achieved by asking the contractor to install it with the frame arms perpendicular to the roof deck. So you're essentially aiming the product down the roof slope, making sure that it projects out in the right direction and doesn't have any issues. Competition in this space often requires multiple models to line up with the roof pitch and be installed as an upright. And the installation methodology for those products is often installed up high in the corner here. It's a bit of a challenge sometimes to install in a single direction when you have this right angle triangle formation of installing that sprinkler up in this area. So naturally we have that single sprinkler that we'll ask to install and aim it with the roof deck, but then also it's installed 32 to 40 inches away from that center line. So it allows for possibly a better way to install this product, lower, further away from a crunch zone up here having to work. So just overall a very nice way to handle this type of product. The DS56 has 2 listed flows and pressures, one for a coverage area of 6 by 30 feet and another for 6 at 40. Now the big thing to understand about the 6 at 40, although we can really cover that far, is that it needs 35 gallons a minute at 39.1 psi. That is a pretty demanding end head pressure, and only the strongest water supplies are really going to be able to take advantage of that spacing. When we look at the 6 at 30, being a 16.9 end head pressure, it's fairly reasonable. And this is often a more realistic application of this type of product, especially when pressure is limited. Moving along, we'll now look at our DD56. It's a 5.6 K factor dual direction product that can be installed at the peak and offer coverage areas of a maximum of 40-foot spans. So that would be 20 foot in each direction of that particular sprinkler's installation position. Our DD56 series products are available in two different models. We call one of them the DD56-6 and the other the DD56-27. These offer a coverage area of 40-foot maximum spans, 6 foot in between them, and we get a 4 and 12 roof pitch to an 8 and 12 roof pitch. There's only one listed flow and pressure for this product, 6 at 40, and that requires 25 gallons a minute at a reasonable 19.9 psi end head pressure. There are some such solutions on the market that do go greater than 40 foot with a 5.6 K factor. You're just going to find that you need much more end head pressure to make that product work, and we really didn't feel like that was a necessary need for this product line. There's a DD56-27 minimum flows and pressures equal to what we saw before, 6 at 40 at 25 gallons a minute at 19.9 psi. The DD80 sprinklers are going to be able to offer coverage for spans that are greater than 40 feet. And when we look at the installation of these, we'll be able to deliver what has been the industry standard for many years of 60-foot maximum spans. But the nice part about this product is that it can go beyond what has been the industry standard. It can go to 66-foot maximum spans when we space this product 6 foot apart at the peak. We also are able to take it even further than 66 feet by going to a 70-foot maximum span. The caveat with this is that we're going to now need to reduce the spacing at the peak down to 5. If we were to offer 70 at 6, that would exceed 400 square feet, which is a limitation of FPA 13. The model DD sprinklers are available in two variants. We have the DD80-6 and the DD80-27, roof pitches of 4 and 12 to 8 and 12. And this is our installation guidelines that we see here. It's installed right at the peak like we'd expect, within 6 inches off of the peak. And our installation tolerances for the deflector is 17 to 21. That's a little bit tighter than what we've seen in the past at 16 minimum to 22 max. Let's discuss the listed coverage areas for the DD80 products. If we look at a bulletin for this product, we're going to find a table that has all the listed flows and pressures, and we're going to find 4 different flows and pressures. All of them have some unique characteristics to them that we just want to point out here. The first one being our 6 at 40 listing for the product. The 6 at 40 listing is not found on all manufacturers' products, and it allows us to have a very low end head pressure. That 8.0 K factor allows us to have a low end head pressure of 9.8 when it comes to applying this product. 25 gallons a minute, 9.8 psi. Next, we'll look at the 6 at 63 spacing. Now, the 6 at 63 spacing requires 38 gallons a minute at 22.6 psi. This is 3 additional foot of coverage area, but it uses the same flow and pressure as our competitor's 60-foot listing. So same flow and pressure, but 3 additional foot of coverage. And we look at the 6 at 66, we're now looking at the largest span of coverage for one of these products. And we're also looking at the highest amount of demand in gallons and PSI at 40 and 25 respectively. But if you really need a single line of sprinkler heads to cover up to 66 foot, it's worth trying to make that work with that additional 2 gallons a minute and additional almost 2.5 pounds to make that work. Lastly, we have our 5 at 70. And when you think about the idea of using a single sprinkler to cover up to 70 foot of coverage, it could end up making you feel like it's going to be very difficult to make that work, especially knowing what you've had to do in the past with the flows and pressures for attic sprinklers at 60-foot spans. The nice part about this is that we're compressing the spacing from 70 at 6 down to 70 at 5. And that allows us to cover with this sprinkler 350 square foot of coverage area, meaning that we can reduce the amount of flow that's required to get a light hazard density. And it is a listed product with 38 gallons a minute at 22.6. And if those numbers sound familiar to you, that is because they're the same as what we just showed you with 6 at 63. And then it's also what our competition typically uses for their 60 foot of coverage. So if you've ever been able to make 60 foot work, you're not going to be challenged to make 70 foot work with this type of product. Roof spans that exceed 70 foot. We can use additional sprinklers to get coverage areas out beyond 70. So we would install a DD80 at the peak, and then we would add in additional sprinklers. For this application, we recommend the GP56. The GP56 would be paired with that 70 offered by the DD80 and offer 100 foot maximum span. Each GP is going to offer 15 foot, and then you pair it with the 70 by the DD80, you get up to 100. If you really wanted to, you could build this type of layout where you have 2 lines at the peak running DD56s and then our GP56s, and in this instance you could get this all to work and offer a maximum span of 110. Now the GP56 is a very unique product. There's not really any other sprinkler like it out there for attic applications. It uses a 5.6 K factor, has a 4 and 12 to 8 and 12 roof pitch. We're going to install this sprinkler with the top of the deflector parallel to the roof deck. The total coverage area for this product is going to be 150 square foot, and that's going to be measured along the floor, just as all of our attic sprinklers are. The primary application for this product is going to be used to extend sprinklers at the peak, whether they're single or dual direction. Can be used in dormer construction in certain instances, and then also for obstructions as well. You'll see here that we install it underneath of the roof deck with the frame arms perpendicular to the roof deck. Now the GP56 product is going to function as a single direction product, so installing the deflector in the proper way is important. What we need to do is make sure that the open side of the deflector faces down towards the eave so the water can project out of it. We bend the back of the deflector down to really knock down the pattern, to make sure it doesn't go too far behind it, and we can have it function again like a single direction product. If we look at the coverage area for the product, you'll see here we have 150 square foot of coverage that's mapped out. In plan view, you're going to get 12 foot of coverage in the front and then 3 foot of coverage behind. When we compare that to products that we've used in the past for extending sprinklers at the peak, we've had some very specialized attic upright technology that has had a limited application of 10 foot by 10 foot. So the GP56 has the ability to offer a greater coverage area when we products. Just for an example, we have the ability to install the GP56 inside of this green stripe zone right here. Basically, you're going to want to make sure that you're installing the product 12 foot back so you can maximize the full 15 foot of coverage with this type of product. When you compare it to the attic uprights we've mentioned before, they have this limitation of giving you 10 foot of coverage in plan view. You have the ability to install the sprinkler inside of this little red stripe zone right here. What you're getting out of that is basically the ability to put it right here or right here and then always keep 10 foot. It's a little different. We're basically going to say, hey, stick it 12 foot back in order to maximize your coverage area. Overall though, what you're getting with the GP56 is much more area to install this sprinkler head, and then we're also getting this opportunity to, as you can see clearly in this elevation view, more room to work. So if this is a retrofit in a finished attic, you're going to have the ability to put your field personnel in a better situation to install rather than having to get down into a crunch zone as depicted right here. One other thing to point out as well is that there is a thickness component to the green. This is a thickness of 4 inches, and this is a thickness of 2 inches. So if you're doing a dry pipe system, it's really almost like a no-brainer to want to use a GP56 because you're able to install this sprinkler in a 4-inch zone where the top of the deflector can be installed on the pipe. So you can do 4 inches of basically pitch on that. You can install a GP56 on a branch line. You can run that branch line and pitch it per NFPA 13 for 80 foot. With this installation right here, we're going to have that limitation of needing to install the sprinkler on a branch line and then only get 40 foot of a run on a dry pipe system before the pitch is going to become a concern when we directly mount that product onto the pipe. The GP56 is going to be slightly different than the attic upright technologies that have come before it because it's going to have a listed flow and pressure. We just showed you that it is a product that has a very unique spray pattern. In order to deliver that spray pattern, we're going to have to make sure that each one of these sprinkler heads in the hydraulic calculation is going to flow a minimum 17 gallons a minute at 9.2 pounds. We also have a undocumented application for the GP56 where it can be used in a single direction slope, just as you see it here. It wasn't originally intended for use in this product in this type of way. We did discuss this with UL about using it for single direction applications. The challenge with this is that it wasn't run through the full scale testing. So we don't have the ability to offer a calculation that's really good for the product. What we have to do is basically use NFPA 13 special design areas with 7 heads, wet or dry. But this also will not allow the use of CPVC pipe. Again, it's just the fact that it wasn't fully tested at UL, so we're lacking those two things: CPVC pipe and also the ability to calculate it in a special way. The benefits are really nice though, because you're going to be able to get a more cost-effective sprinkler, one that's spaced much further apart, 10 foot, versus one of our single direction products, which is 6 foot. Now, when we want to install this product as well, ideally it sits on the roof as we just saw in the previous slide, but sometimes we're going to have an overhang. When we have this overhang situation, we need to make sure that we have a greater than 36-inch area clearance so this sprinkler can project the water down into this overhang and still give us coverage. Moving on to our attic hip AH sprinkler. This one comes in 2 varieties. We have a 4.2 K factor and a 5.6 K factor. Listed for roof slopes of 412 to 8 and 12. We'll install it with the deflector parallel to the roof deck. The maximum coverage area for this product is going to be 150 square foot as measured on the floor. The primary application for this product is being used in hip ends of attics. If we take a look at this, we have no restriction for installing the product in this type of application. The hip can be as large as we need it to be. And our guidance on our bulletin incorporates a figure that we see here. First things to notice is that we're going to have a requirement to install our first row of AH sprinkler heads on the inside of the girder truss. Now, girder truss is often sometimes double step down trusses or some type of special arrangement with the wood. But basically, to get around any kind of obstruction concerns, we install our first line of AH sprinkler heads on the inside of that girder truss, and we're totally okay at that point. Now, there's also going to be a requirement to stagger these sprinklers 2 foot as they go up the same slope. So we can't run this next sprinkler in the same channel right here. We're going to have to hop over on this side or hop over on the other side. This is a requirement that UL imposes upon these sprinkler heads, and it's basically to ensure that should we get a fire occurring down here in the eave, that if it misses this sprinkler, by the time it gets up to this sprinkler, because it's in a channel that's offset from this one, maybe it'll activate here and potentially not get all the way up here to these sprinklers at the ridge. So it's just a way that UL handles that type of situation. It's probably not a bad idea. You're also going to see a note that indicates we can have a single quick response standard spray upright sprinkler used in this location right here at the very, very top of your peak. So ideally, we'd want to just, lay in some AHs right here and then throw in one right here. But our challenge is that the AH might have a cold solder challenge with these sprinklers right here. And the easy way to get around that is to use a single standard spray upright. When you go down that road of using a single standard spray upright in this area, it will not hurt your ability to use CPVC pipe. It also doesn't affect the way you hydraulically calculate that area. You'll just incorporate that standard spray upright in that area. The Model AH sprinkler head is going to be installed with the frame arms perpendicular to the roof deck. We're also going to make sure that the sprinkler is installed with a 1 to 3 inch deflector to the bottom of the top cord. And then also there's going to be this notation that we need to make sure that the frame arms are parallel to the EAVE. So we need to make sure that it's installed as you see it here. Now that all will become clear when we explain to you the spray pattern for this product. Here we have the Model AH sprinkler head in plan view, and we can see it has a very unique spray pattern coverage area. We have 15 foot by 10 foot, but instead of having the sprinkler located, let's say in the middle right here, where it's going to provide 7.5 behind it and 7.5 in front of it, we have this offset. So it has 9 foot of coverage in the front and then 6 foot of coverage in the back. Now this is really all due to the fact that we're installing the sprinkler underneath of a sloped roof. So it's going to be easy to project water down to the EAVE 9 foot if we don't have frame arms as an obstruction in front of it. And the measurement of 6 foot behind the sprinkler head, this is due to basically a fact of gravity pulling down on our spray pattern. We just can't project upwards and 9 foot behind the sprinkler head. Looking at traditional attic uprights in the past, we have what we'd expect to see as a more traditional type of coverage area. We have 5 foot on each side, we have 6 foot on the front, 6 foot out the back, a total of 120 square foot. On the surface, these two sprinkler heads look as if they're 150 square foot versus 120 square foot. The thing to understand though is that our products are measured flat on the floor of the attic, and the other ones are measured along the slope. So we take a look at how this works right here. Basically, we can offer you 15 foot of coverage on a 4 and 12 roof slope with no problem. And then looking at these attic uprights, because the coverage area is measured along the slope, that 12 foot measurement, this one's only going to deliver 11 foot 4.5 in that direction. So what you're looking at is 150 with the AH, and then attic upright technology offering 114 square foot of coverage in this instance. Now, because we're talking about slopes, this can change, and this is our best case scenario here for the competition's product because it's 4 and 12. You'll see here that we're delivering still 150 square foot, 15 foot on the floor, and now that 12 foot on an 8 and 12 slope results in only 10 foot of coverage in plan view. So now we have a situation where AH delivers 150 square foot of coverage versus 100 square foot of coverage for these attic uprights. Now you can also use this sprinkler to extend sprinklers located at the peak. And for that application, we know before the attic upright technologies out there, they offer the 10 foot by 10 foot. Saw this slide before that showed off the benefits of our GP56. Now we can layer in the AH, and we're going to see that you have two options. Basically offering a lot of areas to install this product. The AH product is going to be slightly closer to our measuring point because it's 9 foot back. We're still going to have a healthy increase in the amount of room to work, being roughly about 2'9" in this instance here. We are also going to point out that we have that thinner green area to install that sprinkler head. So we're going to fall back into that 2-inch category where we installed that sprinkler head. Ultimately, the dry system application with this is going to offer you a 40-foot long branch line, just like the attic uprates previously. That may or may not be something that you want. So you have to choose simplification by using the sprinkler head, maybe in the hips and maybe in this application, or introducing the GP56, greater distance back, and then also having more area to install that product with respect to dry system pitching. The AH42 has a minimum flow and pressure of 15 gallons a minute at 12.8 psi. And our AH56 product has 15 gallons a minute at 7.2 psi. Let's just look at some quick hydraulic comparisons here to close out this session. When we look at 70-foot layout using competitive attic sprinkler products, we know that we have dual direction products here. We have support sprinklers down at the EAVE, and basically in total we're looking at 3 branch lines, 36 sprinkler heads in total. Now, calculations of this type of system is going to require that we do 7 of these sprinkler heads on a dry system, and we're going to pick up 2 additional sprinklers down at the EAVE, and ultimately that calculation is going to require a minimum of 296 gallons a minute. As an alternative, we know that Reliable has the ability to do this 70-foot coverage area as long as we reduce the spacing at the peak. So we're down at 4 foot right here. This is going to result in a single branch line running down the middle that has 24 sprinklers in total. If we were to do a standard spray layout, we'd need basically 5 branch lines, 75 sprinkler heads. So that's the range. 5 branch lines, 75 sprinklers with standard spray. When we look at our competition's product offering, it's 3 branch lines at 36, and then we're doing a single branch line at 24. In order to calculate the dry system though, we're going to do 7 sprinklers on that sprinkler system calculation. Now, what's nice is when we do this calculation, we add up all the sprinkler head and the flows, it turns into 296 gallons a minute. Now, it's going to be better than what we just showed you because those 2 sprinklers at the EAVES are not going to be part of our calculation, thus resulting in about 30 gallons a minute saved with this. In addition to the branch lines and sprinkler heads, there's going to be even less water transiting through our pipes. Here's an alternative to 70 foot with a single branch line. It would incorporate using our Reliable products in a 3 branch line arrangement. This would put us on even ground with the competing attic products out there, but there is an advantage to going about it this way. When it came time to calculate this type of layout, we would again use 7 sprinklers located at the peak, and we would add 2 sprinklers at the EAVES. The nice part about this is that we could take advantage of that unique coverage area that we discussed before with our 8.0 K factors covering only 40 foot of an area, 6 by 40. So in calculations, we would calculate the 6 at 40 and add these 2 sprinklers in, and ultimately get a really reduced flow rate of about 205 versus the 296. So saving 90 gallons a minute, but more importantly, those sprinklers at the peak, these right here, the most demanding ones all the way at the top, is going to be starting at 9.8 psi. That is a dramatic reduction in end-head pressure versus the competition's layout, because that would be maybe around 22.6, and this is dropping at 13 psi almost. Huge in some portions of the country that actually don't have much psi to begin with. And let's close out this presentation with some hip hydraulic comparisons. In this example here, we see a bunch of standard spray sprinkler heads throughout a A-frame portion of the attic, and then ultimately throwing them in to the hip area right here. And we're basically using NFPA 13 guidelines here for our hip layout, where we're straddling our hip per the annex. We're keeping our 5-foot distance. We don't have a requirement to stagger our sprinkler heads as we go up the slope, and basically that's what we're resulting in here. If we wanted to calculate this type of attic arrangement, we would need to do on a dry pipe system a full 2,535 remote area. That would incorporate 29 sprinkler heads. Our minimum hydraulic demand for something like this is going to be 563 gallons a minute. In this example here, we've replaced those standard spray sprinklers, at least in this ridge area, with dual direction products that are listed for that type of application. We have kept standard spray in the hip. This is always an option to people to mix and match this way. In this instance, you're going to have 20 of those sprinklers in the hip area. For calculation purposes, we're going to need to again calculate in a dry system a full 2,535 square foot remote area. And in this instance, we're going to now need 376 gallons a minute. So slightly better for us hydraulically than what we had in that previous example. If we were to look at using competitors' attic sprinkler products, we would have dual directions there, and then we would have special sprinklers, attic uprights in the hip. And if you take note, the layout changed quite a bit. I mean, we have basically gotten away from straddling the hips. We're now 10 foot apart between these sprinkler heads. We're hitting our stagger as we go up the slope. And in the end, with this same example, apples to apples, we kept the number of sprinklers, those attic uprights in the hip, at 20. So we didn't really save anything by switching over to those sprinkler heads. The nice part about using special attic sprinklers is basically they have some very favorable hydraulic calculations. And in this instance, there's two calculations that need to be run. One where we're incorporating 7 of these sprinklers on a dry system at the peak, and we're adding in 2 of our additional sprinklers from the hip. That would basically result in about 296 gallons a minute. Calculation number 2, this is where these attic uprights really do offer some benefits here. We're going to now calculate the entire hip area up until 1,950 square foot is incorporated in that area. For this example, the actual remote area is going to be 836 feet, and we're going to calculate 20 sprinklers in that instance. And ultimately, we're going to need 296. So as we saw in both examples, we really didn't know which one's going to need the minimum amount of water. They both equaled out to be 296. It'll definitely change once we calculate, run all our piping and then look at over discharge and everything else. We'll need to determine which one of these two calculations was the most demanding and then submit that with our design. Now we'll focus on using reliable attic sprinklers for this whole attic. We have our dual directions located at the peak, and in our hip we've now incorporated our AH products. You can already see layouts changed. There is a big reduction in the number of sprinklers. We went from 20 of those standard spray uprights and those attic uprights now down to 15. So just by choosing the attic sprinklers from Reliable, this hip example saved us 5 sprinkler heads. We'd like to look at the AH products right now and how they're listed with flows and pressures versus attic upright technology that has been in the past area density. We have a listed flow and pressure for the AH56 of 150 square foot of coverage. The flow rate for the product is 15 gallons a minute at 7.2 psi. This is near perfect application of the sprinkler because we're not getting any over discharge and we're actually delivering a 0.1 density, which is what we need to be doing according to NFPA 13 for light hazard in those attic spaces. Looking at the competition, we have the area density type product being applied, and when we do our calculations, we have to be aware of what we're covering and what we're flowing. This area is 114 foot of coverage, 11.4 gallons per minute, resulting in 4.2 psi out of that sprinkler. That is what is required to get this sprinkler to deliver a 0.1 density in that area. So we know that 4.2 doesn't work. We need to now over discharge these sprinklers. And what we're doing is we're now kicking that up to 7 psi. We're now over discharging 3.4 extra gallons per sprinkler in that remote area, and now delivering a 0.134 density. Just really over discharging everything. What we do know about this as well is that this is a 4 and 12 roof slope. This is probably about as good as it's going to end up getting, because when the slope goes up, the coverage area is decreased. In the worst case scenario, we see here that the AH56 still delivers 0.1 density because we're not affected by the slope. The slope affects the attic upright technology now, getting us even further away from that 7 psi, forcing us to now over discharge even more. We are now going to do an extra 4.8 gallons a minute, resulting in 48% over discharge and an actual delivered density out of every sprinkler in that area of 0.148. If we round that up, we're looking at a 0.15, essentially using that sprinkler head. No matter what you do in a dry system 5.6 K factor, you're going to then do a ordinary hazard group 1 density in that area. So back to our calculation layout, we're going to do 2 calculations with the AH product. Just like we saw before, we do 7 of these sprinklers at the ridge, and we add in 2 sprinklers right here, and that's going to result in 296 gallons a minute required, same as what we had with our competitor's attic layout as well. But when it comes to the hip, we have the same requirement. We add in every AH sprinkler head up until we hit 1950 square foot. In this instance, we're going to calculate all 15 of those sprinkler heads because they're matched up better. They're not going to over discharge as much because we remove 5 sprinklers out of that area. We get a lower minimum hydraulic demand at 225 gallons per minute versus the 296. So there's some clear benefits to the AH product. The less sprinklers in the area, the better flowing characteristics of it are going to result in just better hydraulics when you do those calculations. This concludes our presentation of attic sprinkler technology. If you have some additional questions, feel free to reach out to the technical services department at Reliable. We are available by phone and email Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you.